Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first Decoding the WSL pod of 2026, the podcast dedicated to the stats and facts in the WSL. Today, I'm joined by two lovely guests. I've got esteemed journalist and owner of every T-shirt under the sun, Tom Maher. How are you doing today, Tom?
Hi, Izzy. I'm all good. Happy New Year. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Did you get any new shirts for Christmas?
Yes.
Nice. Can't wait to see them on a future
Don't worry. You will be seeing them soon, I'm sure.
I literally cannot wait. And also joining the pod for, I believe, the fourth time, but certainly the first time I've been on the pod with him. And we have the Arsenal women editor of the Gooner fanzine. It's my pleasure to welcome Freddie to the pod. How are you? How was your Christmas?
Yeah, nice, thank you. Thanks for having me. Good to be back on. And nice to switch off a bit over Christmas, but very much ready to hit the ground running again this week.
What are your New Year's resolutions, guys? I'm interested to know. As someone who doesn't really make any, other than to buy more T-shirts that aren't Arsenal T-shirts.
That was also my one, to buy more shirts as well. I don't think I've really thought about it this year, to be honest, Freddie and Izzy. I feel like maybe being better at aerial fancy. I'm not sure the revelation, but resolution.
Hope.
But yeah, desperate hope. That would be my desperate hope.
Yeah, I was not thinking with them. I don't think I've ever stuck to one really, so I just gave up this year, which is probably just not the way to go at all. But you never know. Maybe it'll make me a better person. Who knows?
That is exactly what I do every year. So there's absolutely no shade coming from me there. So let's get into it. We are back for the WSL for the second half of the season. In this episode, we're going to be previewing game week 12, where it's head-to-head for the Reds. United are going to the Emirates in the battle for third place and that all-important Champions League spot. Table toppers, Man City, host 10th place Everton in the hope that they can continue their excellent run of form into 2026. And the Seagulls are heading inland as they take on Aston Villa for a mid-table fight. Heading into the second half of the season, City are on top. Liverpool are facing relegation. I don't think that's necessarily where we thought we'd be this time at the beginning of the season. So let's get into it. Let's start with, I feel like it's only right we start with the Arsenal game. Probably the biggest one of the weekend, and with three Gooners on the pod, it seems only right we start with the big one. Saturday, 12:30 at the Emirates. Both teams are vying for third place. Arsenal are on 22 points and United on 21. Last time out, it was a draw, and they actually play each other again on the 21st in the Subway Cup semi-final. Freddie, I'll start with you. What is actually going to separate these teams? Because from where it stands so far, they seem to kind of be points-wise on level pegging, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, looking back to that 0-0, I was there at Lee Sports Village in, I think it was October, November. Not a great game at all. United a very, very good defensive side, but this sort of eyebrows raised that 3-3 draw against Tottenham was a bit like not quite out of the United playbook, and really interested to see sort of that result. Leah Schuller's a massive signing. I think if she's ready to come in and play apart from the bench or even start, I think that's massive for them. They do lack a bit of depth up front. I think midfield's always key when Arsenal play Manchester United. I think with sort of Arsenal's reshuffled midfield, Caldente further forward, Cooney Cross coming in. I've really liked that, Cooney Cross alongside Little. And the Emirates will always be a massive advantage for Arsenal. You know, I really think having every league game there, you know, taking teams like United there, they beat them at the Emirates on the final day of the season. They won there the season before, I think I'm right in saying, against United as well. That will play a big part. I'm not quite sure crowd-wise what the numbers are going to be like, but I think this will hopefully be a more open game with both sides trying to go at each other a little bit more than the reverse fixture.
Yeah, definitely. And you spoke about Leah Schuller. Obviously, that's huge for United. They've also brought in Hannah Lundqvist, who's hugely respected, even though she's quite a young player still. And today we heard the news that Snorre Holmberg's coming to Arsenal. Tom, as our resident Swede, and I'll extend that to an additional German as well. How do you see that impacting? Is it going to impact at all? Are those players going to be ready to make an appearance on Saturday? And if so, could they be the game changers, do you think?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think Smilla Holmberg is definitely kind of brought in to share some of that load with Emily Fox at right back. I'd be surprised if she started on Saturday, but a really exciting signing as well leads a lot of the big statistics in the Damallsvenskan from last season. You know, she had the most successful dribbles of any player in the league. The joint most key passes played as well. You know, a very good player. And like you said, with Hannah Lundqvist, she's a really good player. I think I was looking at this signing. I for some reason I thought she was so much older than she is. She's really young.
I thought that too. I was like, she's a veteran of the game, and I was like, she's 23.
Yeah, I don't know. It just feels like she's been around for a long time. But yeah, obviously she's at Atletico Madrid before. San Diego Wave. I think that's a really good signing because she's got versatility, and yeah, I know that San Diego Wave didn't want to let her go, and they were negotiating with her for a long time until she ended up deciding to go. So that's always quite a good sign, I think. And with Leah Schuller, we know how good she can be, her talent, you know, her goal scoring ability. I think maybe there's like a level that she hasn't quite reached that she is capable of. I think maybe going into Euro 2022, I remember thinking, this feels like her tournament. This feels like her tournament to be like, I'm that German striker now. And Pop obviously had a great tournament there, and Leah Schuller was kind of more of a backup in that tournament, and just feels a little bit like, could this move be that opportunity for her to go up that level? It'll be interesting to see. I know that last year she went on had a bit of a goal drought. I don't think she scored between November and March, and then finished the season really, really strongly. So it feels like another kind of confidence player. But yeah, I think if anyone's going to make the impact of those new signings, I think it would be Leah Schuller, because she has the ability to score from anywhere. And yeah, I mean, she's just something new, something that's like hard to. I know Arsenal have come up against Bayern Munich even recently with Leah Schuller in the side, but you know, it's just how she's going to fit in with United, I think. And if you're talking about for United game changers, I think probably Freeline Arolfo, 3 goals and 2 assists in our last 3 matches for United has to be up there. It's going to be a really exciting game, though. I'm really excited for this one.
Yeah, it's. I think it's going to be a really good but a really cold one. So we'll have to wrap up warm. Last question, Freddie. If you're Renee Slayers or Mark Skinner, what are you doing in this game to sort of spice things up from that 0-0? And are you looking towards the 21st at the Subway Cup semi-final? And is that playing on your mind, or is this? I mean, both teams need every win they can in the league. So is it just a case of like focus on this game and then see what comes next?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you'll look a lot at this game when they come around to the 21st, but I think it's probably a little too far away to be on their mind. I think for Arsenal, the Blackstenius or Russo conundrum will be interesting. Blackstenius played up front against them at Leigh Sports Village, didn't massively work. Russo was sort of marked out of the game. There's always that added dynamic with Russo. I quite like putting her up front and sort of having that motivation for her. She'll probably get booed by the United fans. You know, when that's your best striker, I would be putting her up front and sort of motivating her to want to go and score against her former side. What Arsenal do, the goalkeeper will be interesting. Daphne van Domselaar's been out injured. Renee her pressers on Friday, so we'll get more on Van Domselaar. Annika Borber's done quite well, but I think if Arsenal can have Van Domselaar back in goal, that'll be a big boost, as well as Borber's done. Obviously, Tullis Joyce, when she was out the side for United, that made quite a big difference for them. She's going to be crucial there. But I think for Arsenal, those battles in the wide areas are going to be really interesting. Celine Bizet ended up at right back, and Arsenal sort of didn't target her enough. I remember in the reverse fixture, they now do have sort of that defensive cover a little bit more, and then the impact of Leah Schuller for United, how they look to use her, because often Mallard or Turland up front, a bit like how Arsenal have the Russo or Blackstenius conundrum. If they can find a way of fitting Schuller in, even if it is off the bench, I think who starts up front, Mallard's physicality sort of caused problems last time, and Turland, another proven striker, so quite a few decisions sort of for both teams to make. But I do remember Mark Skinner saying, after the last game, he finds it quite easy almost to predict what Arsenal will do. So he said that before that game, he knew for a fact they were going to play Blackstenius up front. So maybe it is the task of René Slegers to try and surprise him.
René Slegers and an air of mystery. That is something I would like to see. All right. I'm going to say 2-1 to the Arsenal for this one, purely because of the Emirates vibe. That is what I'm going on. Tom, what are you saying?
Yeah, I'm on a similar wavelength to you. I think this game, especially at the Emirates the last few years, has been goals. I think there's been 16 goals in the last 3 games between these two at the Emirates, and I think that trend's going to continue. I'm going to go 3-1 to Arsenal. I think that maybe, United have had some pretty high-profile away trips recently that have gone wrong, and I just wonder if some of them might be playing in their mind, like the 3-0 defeat to City, the 5-2 defeat to Wolfsburg.
Fair enough. Freddie, what are you saying?
Yeah, it was so cagey last time, but then that 4-3 on the final day of last season sort of came out of the blue a little bit. I do make Arsenal favourites. They have played well. I think they're 6 unbeaten in all competitions now, which, albeit in a last block where they didn't really play any sides of United's quality or, teams in the sort of top 4 or 5 of the WSL, they're in a much better place than where they were a couple of months ago. So I'm going to go 2-0 to Arsenal, but, they're going to need a good defensive effort. But of course, Leah Williamson is back, so that's a huge boost.
Well, this will be embarrassing for all 3 of us if they lose and we come on the pod next week. But love the optimism. Okay, London derby, Chelsea versus West Ham, Sunday at 12. West Ham have a new manager. Rhian Skinner left the side over Christmas. Obviously, West Ham haven't had, I think it's fair to say, the best start to the WSL season so far. And taking over Rhian Skinner's role is Rita Giurano, who I hope I've pronounced correctly. This is actually her first job outside of Italy. She's a very experienced manager, but inside of Italy in the clubs and sort of youth teams, I believe. Tom, tell me what's happening at West Ham. How are they going to start this season, half of the season, better than they begun it, and what's the impact of a new manager going to have on this game? Because it's not an easy game.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, this was probably one of the best fixtures of the season for West Ham last year, because I remember I was covering this game at Kings Meadow, and West Ham came back from 2-0 down to draw 2-2 with the Shakira and Martinez masterclass in the second half. That was a really it felt like a moment for West Ham where they'd got a huge point away from home, and historically they've really struggled away from home, and obviously didn't really turn out to be that in the end. I think I would say one of the most important things that Guarino needs to organise is the defence, and West Ham getting points on the road as well, because at the moment it just doesn't seem likely that they'll be getting points on the roads against anyone right now. So that's something they really need to sort out. I think she's an interesting appointment. As a player, she scored in the World Cup quarter-final for Italy against Norway in 1991. And like you said, she's was an Italian youth team coach before winning the title 4 times with Juventus, which is obviously very impressive. She's kind of a little bit less successful at Inter Milan. She had a 45% win ratio there, and they're probably a team who, when she was in charge of them, were more on the level of West Ham. she had an 89% win percentage at Juventus. West Ham obviously conceded the most in the league, and usually you'd think an Italian manager will help that. And already she's trying to bring in a defender, Stel Cascarino, from Juventus. Is now looking like she's going to be close to joining West Ham. I'm not sure she'll be joining before the weekend, but obviously somebody who knows the WSL, used to play for Manchester United. So that's another interesting development. It's hard to know how she's going to do, and this is a very hard way to start, especially with Chelsea's recent form. They're in a warm weather training camp at the moment. Obviously, they won 9-1 before the break against Liverpool to decide that West Ham, in their most recent fixture, or before Manchester City had drawn 2-2 with. So does look like an uphill battle for West Ham, this one.
And I mean, obviously, like you say, Tom, this is a tough one, but Freddie, is this a guaranteed 3 points for Chelsea, or do you think they'll approach it as, just another game that they need to win, but with no expectations? And who do you think are going to be the difference makers for Chelsea?
Yeah, there's no guarantees, I think, when there's a new manager bounce, and that's for sure. But yeah, the perfect way for Chelsea to end the year. I couldn't believe that 9-1. I sort of just watched the highlights just now, and that would have probably been less intensive than their Portugal training camp, the manner of some of those goals. This will feel like a harder week for them, I'd imagine. But yeah, Chelsea have so many options, and that's what's going to hurt teams like West Ham when they come up against them, is just a variety of attacking options. And it's maybe been a bad thing at times for Sonia Bonpastor, is having to rotate so much, trying to keep people happy, trying to work out exactly what her best team is. But it's a big second half of the season for Chelsea, not usually 6 points behind the league leaders. So I think every game, there's going to be serious pressure on them. And this is the sort of game where actually that they really show that ruthlessness against Liverpool. And I think that's probably the sort of mentality that they'll be sort of needing the second half of this season, where actually you don't rock up to West Ham and expect to win. And, you never know. They've been in these title races where goal difference as well can prove to be crucial. So I think there's almost a lot we can take from that 9-1 win, and that this, if Chelsea can get that ruthlessness on board for the second half of this season. But I definitely think they should have enough to beat West Ham. And I was also going to ask Tom or Izzy, what's the latest on Hannah Hampton? How long is she out for?
I believe she's gone to Portugal with the squad.
So that's a boost, yeah.
So I think she's hopefully back, if not for this game, then very, very soon.
Yeah. I think was she in the squad on the bench against Liverpool, maybe, but not quite there. I think they were quite optimistic just before the break, so I think she'd be back. But, yeah.
And obviously Khadijah Buchanan's back in training as well, so that's another string to their bow. So yeah, exactly. I think you're totally right, Freddie. It's quite a scary prospect, this Chelsea team. Despite them being 6 points behind City, it feels like they are kind of on a ruthless one. Tom, what are your predictions for this?
Yeah, I'm thinking that Chelsea are going to have a bit of a ruthless second half of this season at the moment. I think they're going to beat West Ham 5-0. That's what I'm going to go with.
Go on, Freddie, what are you thinking?
I always think there's goals in this West Ham team, to be fair to them. I think with that sort of front line of Martinez, Yoeki, Asei, I think that's probably a massive criticism for Anne Skinner, as she didn't get them firing, particularly because we've sort of seen bursts of goals from all of them. So I think West Ham will score, but I think Chelsea will put 4 past them.
Yeah, I think I was going to go 4-1 as well. I'll give West Ham the new manager bounce, and they can have one against Chelsea, but I think that's probably as far as it'll go. Last time out, it was 2-1 to Tottenham. Goals from Tamberg, Holt, and Sam Tierney scored one for Leicester. That game, Tottenham accumulated 1 XG to Leicester 0.7. All right, let's move on to another game taking place at 12 p.m. on Sunday. Tottenham versus Leicester City. I'll actually be at this one, my first time at the Bet Right, so that's very exciting. obviously, I mean, we'll come on to this in a minute, but Tottenham have been having a field day in the transfer window and it's only just started. So do you think, Tom, this is going to change particularly that dynamic in this match? Are we going to look at sort of a similar scoreline? What do you think?
Yeah, I definitely would make Tottenham favourites for this one. And like you said, they've made some brilliant signings in this window, and it'd be great to see a few of them play on the weekend. See how they're settling in. Yeah, I can imagine it being quite similar. I think Leicester will probably set out to try and get a point. They've had some really creditable results away from home this season. Thinking about that draw with Aston Villa, especially and the late draw with West Ham as well. They can cause teams problems, especially ones who maybe on paper should be beating them. So I think they'll be optimistic they can cause Tottenham some issues. Whether they'll be able to or not, I'm not so sure. It's an interesting dynamic having Ashley Neville, who's obviously such a huge player, has been such a huge player for Tottenham over the years, their longest serving player, on the verge of signing for Leicester as well before this game. So that would be very interesting if that were to go through before the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, to talk a bit more about those transfers, I mean, as I swear I've become like a Tottenham fan throughout this season, like each podcast documents my slow downfall, but I mean, Senior Gope said coming to the WSL. We've got Micah Hamano's now gone on loan to Tottenham. I mean, and if you think about who they've got in the squad, but like Tamberg, who they brought in, and the form that Olivia Holt's been on, like Freddie, how do these new signings fit in? Do they just take over, or how do you see that working out? And is it going to make Tottenham an even more unstoppable team than they've been sort of on the run they've been already this season?
Yeah, I'm really interested to see what it changes tactically, because a lot of them are sort of wide players or fullbacks. You mentioned Ashley Neville going. Does this sort of spark a formation change, for example, for Tottenham? Does it change a bit of a style, in terms of getting these fullbacks in, focusing on the wide areas? But the goals are coming, and they've got finally sort of these players in Tanberg who can put the ball in the back of the net, and that's been a massive difference to Tottenham, as they have these sort of big presences in the box now. Beth England's experience as well, and actually now sort of the youth to this side, if you like, is coming out wide. So I'm quite interested to see how that changes. And Leicester just haven't scored enough goals, so this is quite a nice one actually if you are to integrate some of these players in. And I love the attitude from Spurs, because I think that, the people behind the scenes have obviously took stock, looked at that league table, 2 points of third place, and thought, actually, if there's any time to really throw some money behind the women's team, there's any time to have one massive transfer window. It's not in the summer, it's now. It's actually, could we have this incredible second half of the season, really push, for a top 3 position? You never quite know what they could do. And I've really liked sort of the backing from Tottenham. I think Venkatesham, I saw Tim Stillman tweet that sort of he's had a bit of an impact. He was at Arsenal before when they were sort of selling out Emirates Stadium, took a massive interest in Arsenal's women's team, went to the other side of North London's got that role behind the scenes at Tottenham. And by all accounts, he's had quite an important role there. And considering what he did for Arsenal's women, I think that's quite a big boost off the pitch for Tottenham. So yeah, massive second half of the season to come.
Yeah, it's going to be really exciting. I genuinely really can't wait to see sort of the new signings integrate into the team, because I think they're going to be a fun one to watch. And on that note, I'm going to go 3-0 to the Tottenham. Freddie, what are you saying?
I'll go 2-0. 2-0.
Tom, any grace for Leicester?
We're counting down, so I'm going 1-0 to Tottenham.
Fair enough. All right. Well, we'll see. Hopefully Leicester can prove us wrong and get something out of it. But all right, we'll go to the final game that's at 12 p.m. on Sunday. This is a middle of the table clash at Villa Park between Villa and Brighton. Could this be one of the most important games of the weekend, actually? Because 1 point separates these two teams. Both of them have kind of had similar seasons so far. Villa have been very strong defensively and they've scored goals, but Brighton have kind of had, I would say, more like spread out goal scoring potential kind of across the pitch. They're sort of they've accumulated similar XG across the season so far. So going into the second half, they're kind of at similar places. So far, there's been no sort of huge announcements from either team about any transfers. Obviously, Villa have recalled back Katie Robinson, so that kind of puts a bit more of an attacking boost on their squad. But Tom, how do you see this panning out, and how's it going to impact the rest of the season?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, this one, because I remember watching the highlights of the reverse fixture. It was one of those where it's just how it finished 0-0. I'll never know. It was just both teams should have scored a couple, but I do think these are two of the most exciting sides in the division, and especially two of the most exciting managers as well. I think that Vidosic is very good at kind of setting up his sides. And I think Natalia Arroyo is probably one of the best managers in the league at managing a game like during the match, making changes to benefit her side and get a control over a game. So I think it's going to be really interesting. And both sides have some fantastic players and players that can get goals. So I just really hope that we can get some goals. And, because it's going to be another cold one, this one in the West Midlands. So a few goals here would be a nice way of warming up the fans. It's very hard to say, though, because these two are in a very similar position, I think. Like you said, Izzy, they've, they both would have kind of seen themselves, I think, pre-season where Tottenham are now, really on the coattails of the top four. And that's where they want to be. And but they just haven't quite been consistent enough, either of them, this season so far. And they'll really, really be looking to change that in the second half of the season.
Yeah, Freddie, what's your thoughts on the score for this one then?
Yeah, I do agree. I think it'll be a good game. Sort of two attacking sides, as Tom says, sort of know their principles quite well. A case of two sides who sort of often go with that sort of 3-5-2, and the wing backs that like to get forward. Brighton, sort of a younger side. Villa have got more experience. Let's go for an entertaining 2-2 draw, shall we?
I was literally about to say exactly the same thing. Tom?
Oh, God, I love that energy from you two. I'm going to go 2-1 to Villa on this one.
Oh, interesting. Why are they pipping the post?
I just think that in-game management might just put it in their favour.
2:30 at St Helens, we have Liverpool versus London City Lionesses. Again, Liverpool ended what was not a great start to their season either, with that 9-1 defeat to Chelsea. London City Lionesses, I think they started off fairly strong. Obviously, a few mixed results here and there. But again, it's a weird one because on one hand, you have London City Lionesses with all these experienced players and exciting, bright talents. Liverpool have really struggled, but actually, when you're looking at like the top goal scorers, Beata Olsen is joint second alongside Alessia Russo for goals in the WSL so far this season. So it's not like they don't have talent there. Tom, what do Liverpool need to do in this match to kind of set the tone for a departure from 2025?
Yeah, they need to put that Chelsea game as far to the back of their head as they possibly can. It's a very tough balance of, understanding the mistakes and moving on from the mistakes to ensure they don't happen again, and also not dwelling on them. And I think that's going to be something that Gareth Taylor will have had to be working quite hard at. I think it's one of those when, over the winter break, I think before the winter break, I thought, what a terrible time to have winter break, to go into the winter break after a 9-1 defeat. But maybe it's a good time, rather than having those kind of poor results can really build on top of each other at times. So maybe it was good that they had the break, could have a little reset, a rest, because they they were kind of cumulatively playing better up to that point. I think Liverpool made a really good sign in Alice Bergstrom. She quite a similar profile to Smilla Holmberg. She had the second most successful dribbles in the league in the Damallsvenskan last year, joint most key passes with Holmberg, 9 assists and 3 goals for BK Häcken. So she's a really good signing. I'd be surprised if she didn't make her debut. I think she'll go straight into the side. And Liverpool also looking at a legend of Irish football in Denise O'Sullivan, who's currently the North Carolina Courage captain. Understand that reports from Barbara O'Connell last week from the Cork Echo were that she was nearing to signing for Liverpool. That would be a fantastic signing, a really important one as well, with a player like Nagano going to the Asia Cup soon. Denise O'Sullivan, is going to be really important because, if Gareth Taylor likes one thing, it's that one defender in a midfield, or one midfielder in a midfield pivot, defensive midfielder, like he had with Yui Hasegawa. And I think Denise O'Sullivan's certainly the type of player that would be able to do that and free up a player like Nagano to move further up the pitch. So I think that would be a really important move. Obviously, nothing confirmed on that front just yet. I think for Liverpool, in terms of winning this game, what they'd want to do is maybe look over the fence at their opponents and kind of hopefully try and take advantage of a bit of the chaos that London City Lionesses have inflicted upon themselves by changing manager and going into this new second half of the season with a new manager and Eda Maestro. So, I think that would be where they could look to continue with their principles and feel like they're a project that's 6 months further along than maybe London City, because they have had a manager in post for that long.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was going to ask you, Freddie, like, how do you see that impacting the game? Because I think I can speak for everyone when we say it came as a slight surprise when London City just popped out a little press release saying that they'd parted ways with Pressure and Meister was coming into post. How can Liverpool take advantage of that? And what do you think's kind of going on the London City side of the fence?
Yeah, quite remarkable. I mean, one, to think that the independent women's side has, like, when you compare their squad to the women's side of the champions of the Premier League, is remarkable, in terms of the resources available to both managers. But yeah, I always felt there wasn't much talk around Jocelyn Prashour when London City came up and when they were making all the signings. And I sort of had it in the back of my head thinking, well, if this doesn't work, how long is Michel Kang going to be prepared to wait? And that's such a hard job for him. The amount of players they had in the summer, trying to get them, playing a style of football, which I think they had got to. I think they had something working a little bit. Izzy Goodwin up front. Aslani's had a really good season. Kumagai continues to impress me. Gayoro settled into the side. Look, they've had a couple of bad beats, but I think if you're the new manager coming in, it's I think you're worried from the outset, aren't you? Because if that's, Jocelyn Prashour 6th in the WSL after promotion, which is pretty much unheard of, and getting sacked, then I'm not quite sure what the ambition is. We know it's very high, but what's the realistic ambition for London City Lionesses? And we know it's European football, but that isn't quite a team that's capable of it yet. So I do really feel for Jocelyn Prashour, and Liverpool can only hope if there's any unrest they can capitalise on it. But I do feel like this is that sort of Moneyball London City side where actually you can throw this squad of players together and they can do okay. And there's more in this team than Liverpool that, they're more capable of doing things. That game against Chelsea, Liverpool only had 4 outfield players on the bench. I think a couple of those are academy players. So London City should be fine in this game, but it might provide an opportunity.
Tom, are we looking at Jonathan Giraldes for the next manager of London City Lionesses?
It would
in about 3 games' time.
Yeah, at this stage, nothing would surprise me, honestly. Trinity Rodman up front, I could see it. I just, I couldn't agree more with what Freddie's just said about that whole situation. I don't really understand what more he could have done to not be, maybe aside from those last two results, the defeat to Brighton and Leicester. But I mean, you're going to have bumps in the road and in your first season in the league. But yeah, it was always a pleasure I spoke to him a few times, and he was always very personable and very explained things really clearly. And you could see why London City were doing so well. So yeah, it was a very bizarre decision, I thought. But I think they might. I have a feeling about this game. It might be another draw. Liverpool at home.
Okay, what are you saying?
1-1.
1-1. I'll go 2-1 to Liverpool. I'm feeling optimistic. Freddie?
1-0 London City. Good win. I'll put a scorer on for you.
Love that.
Put a fiver on it.
No, not quite that.
Not that quick, that confident. Interesting. Well, let's go to the other side of Liverpool then for the final game of the weekend at 12 p.m. at the Joy Stadium. It is league leaders Man City against Everton, who are in 10th place now. This, obviously, everyone has loved watching City, I think it's fair to say, this season, and their run has been just pretty extraordinary, really. I mean, they haven't lost a game, I believe, since that Chelsea game, first weekend of the season. So, I mean, they've been completely on a roll, and that form, hopefully will continue for them into January. They're 6 points ahead of Chelsea, and they'll need to keep that. I mean, it sounds like a stupid question, but Freddie, is this sort of actually a really important game for them to sort of secure that 3 points and actually keep that lead? Because do you think there's a quick chance of sort of Chelsea catching up with them, or do you think they're kind of set for another storm of a half of the season?
Yeah, mentally it's interesting for City because we know there's been seasons where they've been in good positions, a lot later on in the league as well, and not won it and been pipped to the post by Chelsea. So, 6 points won't mean a lot, in the grand scheme of things. They know they've got to do, keep their end tight, and then, that's enough. And I really like Andre Yegler. It seems like the players have bought into him, and he is probably the right man to sort of steer them towards that title. Seems to be sort of very well thought of. And yeah, it does look like it's clicking. I covered them against Forest in the Subway Cup in sort of mid-December, and they put out a change side, weren't great on the day, but they've just got the quality in this team now, and they've got the depth as well. So, but the reverse fixture, Everton caused them a couple of problems, and they will be wary of that threat. I obviously saw Arsenal at Everton in the final game I did before Christmas, and Everton sort of weren't great on the day, but there's a lot of threat in that side, and City will be wary of that. But yeah, they're a really good team to watch at the moment, and any team with Bunny Shaw, it is that cheat code for me. She is still the best striker in the WSL by probably a distance, and I'm a massive Alessia Russo fan. I think Shaw is just that good.
Yeah, no, it's just like you just can't help but like grin from ear to ear, even though she's destroying your team's hopes and dreams. You're like, just do it. Tom, like Freddie was saying, Everton can cause problems. We know they can because, well, they beat Chelsea. Well, they ended Chelsea's unbeaten run. Hayashi's been on great form. Who are the sort of change makers going to be in that Everton team, and where exactly can they cause those problems?
Yeah, I think the most important is trying to keep City out for as long as they can. I think, because that's what worked so well against Chelsea. The longer you can make it feel like a possibility, the more likely you are to actually make it happen. And I suppose, Courtney Brosnan, of course, in goal is such a huge player for them. She's... I
asked you this question just so you could mention Courtney Brosnan.
It didn't go unnoticed, Izzy. Don't worry. Next time I'm hosting, you'll be getting all the best questions. But Courtney Brosnan is just... it's very hard. I personally have run out of superlatives to describe her. And I think that, they're going to need every single part of her to stop Bunny Shaw, like Freddie was saying, who I'd agree is the best striker in the league at the moment. And then you've got players like Ruby Mace as well, who's had a brilliant start to the season for Everton. She's been so good. She's been pushed back into that centre-back role, which isn't always what she loves to play. She does play it, but it's not her favourite position. And she's been so good there. She's been throwing her body at everything. And I think that they're an odd team, Everton, and I say that with love, but they are an odd team because they love these games. They love causing issues for bigger teams, or the traditional top four, I suppose. So, and I think that they'll be looking to do that again. And a big part of that, I think, one of the most underrated players in the league is Tony Payne, I think, up front for Everton. She never stops running. She had the joint most assists in 2025 in the WSL, which I thought was a brilliant stat. And something that people don't often talk about. You don't often hear about Tony Payne, but she's so important to when Kelly Gago plays well, to when Katja Snoys plays well, to when they score goals. It's so often she has something to do with it. And I think she'll be important again, because in games like this, you need players to just never stop running. And Tony Payne is certainly one of those. And yeah, I think it's obviously going to be an uphill task. It's an uphill task for everyone facing Manchester City at the moment. But yeah, the longer they can try and hold out City, the better. And, they have had good results against City. They went unbeaten in the league against City last year. So, and like Freddie said, I thought they were really good against City. And perhaps a bit unlucky to end up losing 3-1 at Goodison Park earlier this year. So, I think this is going to be an interesting game.
Yeah, I agree. And I think actually it'll be interesting as well to see how the winter break has played for both teams, because City won't want to lose that momentum, whereas maybe Everton can take a bit of a step back and sort of reflect on how the season's gone so far. So I think it could be quite interesting. I'm going to say 2-0 to City for this one. I don't think it's going to be a goal fest. Freddie, what are you saying for this match?
Yeah, was the reverse fixture 3-1 to City? I think it might have been. I'm going to go with that. Again, like Tom said, Everton are a weird team. I was doing my research on them before going up to Goodison for the Arsenal game, and they'd only won once in the WSL since beating Liverpool on the opening day. But they're a team who I've sort of watched and always thought are better than that, and probably have players who are better than that as well. So, yeah, they've got enough to cause City problems, but City want to get off to a good start.
The funny thing with Everton is you'd think the fact that they're away from home would mean they're less likely to win, but they've got all of their points away from home. So it's probably this season. So it's probably a good thing that they're away from home, really. I do think City will have too much for them, though. I think 2-1 to City. I think Everton will give them a good game, but I think City will beat them 2-1.
Yeah, I think Everton haven't quite warmed up to Goodison Park just yet. Okay, well, those are all the games coming up this weekend. Of course, as I always do, I want to chat fantasy quickly before we go into game week 12. Now, admittedly, as I've been on holiday, I have not been thinking enough about fantasy as I should, and so I will heavily rely on your guys' opinions here for your squads coming up. And the most important question I want to know is, are any of the new transfers going straight in your team? Tom?
The answer to that, I think, is going to be yes. Obviously, you've got all these free transfers, so it's not as big a thing as it might have been. But I think the one that I'm looking at right now is Julia Barkstad from Tottenham. She just signed today from Hammarby, and you're probably going to laugh at this, but I did have a Damallsvenskan fancy team last year, and Barkstad was honestly defender. From defence, she scored 15 goals and 5 assists. Can you even imagine how much she just carried my team last year, as somebody who doesn't know a huge amount about the Damallsvenskan? So she's going to come straight out of my Damallsvenskan team, straight into my WSL team, I think.
The fancy transfer market.
Yeah. Whether she's going to start or not, I think it's worth the risk for her. And then I'm kind of interested in Hannah Wyke as well from BK Häcken. I've seen that she's well, they're all going to be visionaries, aren't they? The new signings, but I've seen she's particularly low percentage owned visionary at the moment. But whether she's going to start or not, maybe is more of a concern on that front. But I think Barkstar definitely is going to come in, and then I think just more generally of players that I'm looking at Chelsea defenders like Carpenter and Bronze, just because they have a good fixture this week, and then Toko Koga as well this week for Tottenham if I don't go with Barkstad. And then Kim Little is also still a visionary, and she scored in this fixture last season, so that's going to be a hard one to pass up as well, I think.
What about you, Freddie? Who are you looking at? Are you popping Leah Schuller right in there?
No, but maybe she'll score on Saturday and I'll have to reconsider it. I've got Sandberg and Park in there in terms of Manchester United, but only one transfer actually. I've brought in Jade Rose because she was quite cheap from Manchester City. Seems to be getting a run in the side, and I'm reluctantly not captain Russo. I normally captain Russo against United in the hope that she's going to sort of come good against Liverpool on the side. But, captaining Bunny Shaw did pretty well for me against Aston Villa when she scored all those goals. So if it's not broken, don't fix it.
Yeah.
And Daphne Van Domsel, I'm not sure on her fitness, so that might have to be a late call on Friday, potentially. That is the benefit of being a journalist. If you get these scoops, it can help your fantasy team. So maybe that's a story I'll need to be digging out this week.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you could just text me when you're done with that would be good. I've learned heavily from my mistakes, which is, as we all know, the moment you don't captain Bunny Shaw, she's going to score a hat-trick. So I think she's got to stay in there. Tom, you may have swayed me towards Alice Holmberg. I think that could be actually maybe quite a shout for the bench just to keep her on. I feel like she might go under the radar, and you never know. But I think Beata Olsen's staying on my team. I reckon she's going to get a goal. I'm going to call that. And I also I don't have enough room for all these players, but I want to bring in Hamano because I love how she plays. I loved her at Chelsea, and she actually got a good few points for me when she was at Chelsea because she was always a visionary. And the very few times when she did play and did do something, I got a fair amount of points for her. So I'm wondering if I sort of sneak her in at the beginning, she might be a visionary and actually get some game time on the team. And my final fancy question is Gopset going in your team straight away, or are you waiting to see how that pans out? Because I'm literally have been so excited about this, but I want to know whether I should hold off and wait. Someone tell me to hold off and not make all the wrong decisions right now.
I haven't decided.
Yeah, you must
yet.
be tempted against Leicester. Yeah,
Leicester
exactly.
First
as well.
See, this is the thing. I'm genuinely really tempted.
I feel like at the moment I'm going to have her or Holt in my team. One of them will definitely be there, and I'm leaning towards Holt at the moment because I don't think Holt will be. I'm much more confident that Holt will start than Gopse.
Fair enough. I will listen to your wise words, Tom, and continue to think about it.
Don't, Izzy, don't listen to them. They're probably absolute rubbish. I honestly, I hope people aren't keeping
Martin
receipts.
Ho, if you're listening.
Yeah, of my advice this year on the fancy section, because I think every single weekend I think about something happens and I just think about a bit of advice that's completely wrong that I gave at the start of the week.
Yeah, exactly. Oh dear. Well, that is it for our first preview show of the year. That was great. I can't wait now. I was still slightly on holiday mode, but now I'm fully ready. And I'm doing 2 matches I think the first time ever I'm doing 2 matches in one weekend. So I'm going to be very cold when we next join on the pod, but it's going to be a good one. Thank you both so much for coming on. And if you want more content, more Decoding the WSL, please follow us on all socials at Decoding the WSL. We also have a YouTube channel, so you can see our lovely faces and shirts and backgrounds. And yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you, Izzy.
Pleasure.
And we will speak to you all on the next one.